Which occupations are filled with people who have the worst personality? The higher echelons of any large organization. Why roughly oversimplifying? There are two kinds of people: the people who care about doing the right things right, and the people who care about improving their own position at the cost of anything else. The latter have an inbuilt advantage in climbing a corporate ladder. So the higher you go, the more likely you find people who are, effectively, sociopaths. This in turn will impact who they select for promotions, which is what corporate culture is really about. CF Boeing for a recently very visible example. Healthcare, particularly nursing. Former nurse here. A lot of them are catty and act like teenagers, are overly high-strung Karens, or will throw you under the bus. A lot of CNA letters are just rude. It's also very common to make HC their entire personality for most HC workers. There are a good amount of exceptions. There are great people in nursing and any field that I still threw in the towel, and the majority of unsavory personalities were part of why. It says a lot that I'm in retail now and actually want to show up for work. HR people teams. If you are an absolute twat but you don't hide it and everyone knows you're a twat, that's fine. The worst is when absolute twats pretend to care about others and be friendly just to screw you over when there's an occasion. They all lie they are concerned to your face just to finish the meeting and go and gossip about the confidential stuff. You told them you are sick, asked for a raise, reported a misconduct. Their 30 workplace buddies already know it. Never met HR people person, which is not fake. From my own personal experience, senior managers in education settings use their working to help the young people while simultaneously not giving a shit about the students and making decisions which hinder them because they only care about making themselves look good. I don't like top management at the best of times that don't try and hide behind holier than thou bullshit and hinder kids' education, all while being a narcissist. I've noticed that academia tends to draw in people who are, how should I say, heavy. Some great personalities too, but also people who could, how should I say this, not hold a job anywhere else, probably, who don't have that many friends in real life. Maybe. I loved my studies, but having worked as a research assistant and knowing people who work in administrative jobs at universities, I decided I never want to get into that field. Just too much snobbery, elitism, hierarchies, etc. Insurance. The highest profit is achieved by agents who convince people to take the highest possible premium, often selling them things they don't need. Adjusters who deny as many claims as possible, with many examples of companies that initially deny all claims. Systems that prevent customers from doing anything about the above. There's no way to run this business ethically, and it shows. I used to work in events, and we hired our spaces to people from many industries. By far the worst clients were from fashion. Wanted everything immediately with massive discounts, and they were extremely demanding. A very don't you know who I am kind of attitude. I understand that to get into that industry you essentially have to work for free for several years. So only trust fund kids make it. Everyone keeps saying HR and recruitment, but in my experience these jobs are just held by very average and exceptional people. Worst personality is hospitality, particularly kitchen staff, chefs, dishwashers, etc. Lads who've been in and out of prison and these are the only skills they've learned. Often predatory and bigoted, and managers who think they're Gordon Ramsay turn a blind eye to it. A kid back in primary school used to say that he wanted to be a policeman so he could do whatever he wanted and nobody could arrest him. He wasn't the brightest, so even then I thought what a bunch of bullshit. In hindsight he probably heard that from his dad. Sadly, police seems to attract dumb power-hungry nobodies with a herd mentality, who will abuse their positions and protect each other. Police departments. They are full of the absolutely last people who should be trusted with police powers. They are full of racists, white nationalists, fascists with low IQs because they screen out the intelligent ones before they ever make it to the academy. Almost every police department in the country is full of corrupt cops who beat and murder suspects and then cover for each other. Truck drivers, I work with a lot of them, and I have heard some of the most vile things from truck driver mouths. Things like castrating every prisoner, practicing eugenics, crushing people on the highway who get in their way, and general right-wing talking points turned up to 11. All things said to me by truck drivers I've just met. Most also don't clean up after themselves too. Military, there's some who are genuinely great bosses and managers, but then you have the careerists who value looking good to their bosses at all costs. It's downright ridiculous the lengths they're willing to go to do so. Even worked with some who brag about working on leave and how much time they've spent away from their family. It's not the flex they think it is. Doctors, unfortunately a lot of them. Both of my parents are so the only family friends we hanged out around were doctors as well. A lot of people go into this profession for a wrong reason: money, prestige, power. I'm shocked there is no psychological evaluation prior to starting the major. Same with psychology degree, police, politics, law to add a few other. Worst experience with colleagues ever was when I worked at Applebee's for 3 months. All but to people on the wait staff for total fucking arrogant bitches like. I knew that we all still work at fucking Applebee's, get over yourself. Even the daytime phone manager was a bitch. The evening manager knew and was always doing damage control. Car salesmen, they are indoctrinated into believing people are selfish entitled pieces of don't spend money, not because they can't, but because they're cheap. I know some car salesmen that talk about taking advantage of customers like it's a challenge. They see them as ignorant losers whose money is better off in their hands. People in positions of minimal power, i.e. jobs that require little education, aren't paid well, but give just enough power over people to potentially ruin their day. Airport security, parking attendant, mall security, ticket inspectors, all professions filled with frustrated souls who take out their frustrations on others. Without a shred of doubt, public relations, all they're good at is making themselves look good while being the absolute worst people within and towards each other. I don't care if you're AP or professional reading this, you're probably part of it and you'd already been convinced otherwise. You can burn in a fire. I think all fields have bad people in them because bad people exist everywhere, that professions that seem glamorous tend to attract some of the worst. Fashion, music, film, TV all have an endless supply of people desperate to break in, so there's a big potential for abuse to take place. MBAs, about any subject to sound convincing to corporate suits with money, so eventually come to the conclusion that they're indeed a jack of all trades, and other de facto experts on just about everything. Police seem to be the worst. They refuse to keep their own in order. Once the badge goes on, their egos are out of control. Wasn't like this 30 years ago. What was once an honorable profession has been tarnished by the non-stop abuse they think they can get away with. Kitchens, we're all assholes at work. Lol. One of the highest rates of drug, alcohol, or other addiction problems. Generally antisocial towards the general public. Lots of ex-cons. We're basically motorcycle or pirate gangs thrust into roles in normal society. Lol. Politics, marketing, and from personal experience, nursing. Leers, and judgmental people who don't get enough sleep and refuse to get therapy, therefore lashing out at everyone around them, while they fill in paperwork to say they've done a good job. I worked in union construction during the pandemic and a bit after. I have never seen a more miserable group of people making 6 figures in my life. How the hell are you making $110,000 a year? Amazing benefits, and you are still missing front teeth. I work in a field where I interact with a lot of people of all types. Cops and nurses are the worst overall people. Coming up the rear are teachers, who are usually nice but condescending, controlling, and slightly stupid, all at the same time. Or dominance over others may motivate people to do that occupation, for example police. Priests, a lot of pedophiles. Politics. Sometimes even doctors can be really snobbish. Military workers, etc. The trades have a lot of rough personalities. A cousin of mine was a plumber, got his journeyman license, and was making bank, but all the guys he worked with were doing cocaine and worse shit. He didn't want to be around it, so he left. Or if I had my way, You would have to do 5 years minimum in the company before moving into HR. Want to work in HR as an engineer, then study engineering and then work as an engineer for 5 years. Then only can you move into HR. Sales. Every person I know who is in sales is full of shit. Basically, their job is to lie, avoid the truth. And I don't think they become like this due to the job. Born liars gravitate towards sales positions. It's an industry that's based on shallow values, filled with people who made their personalities based on height and looks, jealousy, lots of stepping over each other and toxicity, entitlement, etc. Pharmacists, not the techs, but actual pharmacists. Sure, there are a few that are great. Once they outgrow their I'm God status, or it's the flip and they are so introverted they can't hardly speak. Slowly nurses are being plagued by a lot of toxic women. It's local to me, that consistently heard from my friends in the medical world that nurses have been getting worse. Perhaps it's due to COVID. Any occupation that gives you a lot of power over people. Good people tend to mind their own business, and they don't crave power to control people, thus, we are doomed to be governed by bad people. Pharmacists smart enough to be a doctor, but with a complete lack of social skills. Most of them lack confidence, and many are complete sociopaths. Managing them is totally impossible. Whoever in banks deal with approving overdrafts. Even my mum commented because they called her to speak to me when I applied. She was like, that was the rudest man I've ever spoken to. DMV employees that work the desk. Literally every time I've been there I was nice and polite and was meant with bitterness and contempt to the point it was almost comical.